Story 1: The Watcher in the Woods. We arrived at the forest clearing just before dusk. The towering pine trees cast long shadows over the damp earth, and the scent of moss and decaying leaves filled the air. The place was eerily silent. No birds, no rustling leaves, just an unsettling stillness. After setting up our tents and lighting a small fire, we sat in a circle, eating and sharing stories. But the feeling of being watched never left me. I kept glancing into the trees, where the darkness seemed to shift, almost like something was moving just beyond my sight. In the middle of the night, I woke up to soft footsteps circling our tent. They were slow, deliberate, too heavy to be an animal, too light to be my friends. Holding my breath, I listened as they stopped right beside my tent. The fabric bulged inward, as if something was pressing against it, just inches from my face. Morning brought no answers, only more unease. We found strange symbols carved into the trees around our camp, deep, jagged scratches forming unknown patterns. The ground was disturbed, as if something had been crawling around our tents all night. My friends laughed it off, but I knew we weren't alone. That night, we heard the footsteps again. This time, many of them. Something, or someone, was closing in. A guttural whisper slithered through the trees, unintelligible but undeniably human. We didn't wait to find out what it was. We grabbed our gear and ran, leaving our tents behind. As we stumbled onto the main road, I turned back one last time. A tall, shadowy figure stood at the edge of the forest, watching us. Story 2: The Vanishing Trail. We were deep in the mountains, following an old hiking trail that hadn't been maintained in years. The further we walked, the more overgrown it became. The trees grew unnaturally close together, their twisted branches forming a suffocating canopy. Soon, we realized something was wrong. Our GPS wasn't working, and the trail markings had disappeared. As the sun dipped lower, the usual sounds of the forest, chirping birds, rustling leaves, faded into an unnatural silence. My friend Mark joked about it, but I could see the nervousness in his eyes. The air felt thick, pressing against our skin like something unseen was watching, waiting. Night fell faster than expected. Mark went ahead to scout the area while we set up camp. 15 minutes passed, then 30. We called his name, but the only response was the echo of our own voices. When we checked his footprints, they led a few meters ahead and then stopped, as if he had vanished into thin air. We searched for hours, but Mark was gone. As we sat by the fire, debating what to do, we heard footsteps circling us. Then, his voice, calling from the trees. But something was wrong. It was flat, emotionless, like a recording. Desperate, we shined our flashlights toward the voice. Mark was standing there. His clothes were dry despite the damp forest. His face was blank, but the worst part? A deep, fresh scratch on his arm, forming the exact same trail markings we had lost hours ago. Story 3: The Thing in the Fog. We arrived at the remote campsite near an isolated lake, miles away from the nearest town. The water was eerily still, reflecting the overcast sky like a sheet of glass. A thick fog hovered just above the surface, unmoving, as if something beneath it was breathing. As night fell, the fog crept toward our campsite. It moved unnaturally, swirling in slow, deliberate patterns. Then, just beyond the water, we saw it. A tall, twisted figure standing motionless in the mist, its elongated limbs blending with the fog. It didn't move, but we felt its gaze. We tried to ignore it, convincing ourselves it was just a trick of the light. But then, as I looked into the lake, I saw something terrifying. Our reflections were wrong. They stood there, staring back at us, even when we turned away. One of them blinked when I didn't. Panic set in. One of our friends, Jake, decided to run back to the car. We watched as he sprinted into the fog, only for his figure to dissolve into the mist. The sound of his footsteps stopped abruptly. When we called his name, the only reply was a whisper that sounded exactly like his voice. We barely slept. When dawn broke, the fog was gone, but so was Jake. No footprints, no sign he had ever been there. The only thing left was his reflection, still standing in the lake, grinning at us as we ran.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the chills and thrills, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story from the shadows. Have a terrifying tale of your own? Share it in the comments below, and remember, the darkness is always watching.